welcome back to FordeeTV. I'm your host, Fordee. So today we are going to do a text effect that wraps and displaces around the face in Photoshop. This is the final result. Let's get started, right? So I'm going to click on this right here. This is going to open this tab in my view, right? And in this, this is my starting photo, right? We're going to do a couple things. This is what we're going to work on, but first we need to create a displacement map. So I'm going to double click on the background here, press enter, and this will unlock that layer. Next, we need to remove the background so only my head and my shoulders are there, visible. So I'm going to go here, depending on what type of image you have. Let's say you don't have a green screen background. You could select the polygon lasso tool and come here and tediously, obviously do it very close and create a selection, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to press escape. I don't need to do that because I shot myself on a green screen. I can come over here to the quick selection tool and I can click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. Just 3 times, press delete, and I've removed the background. If you have yourself against a solid background, obviously it will be easier. If not, you can still remove the background. You could use the pen tool, the lasso tool, etc. Search for tutorials on that on YouTube if you need to know how to use them. I'll press Command D on my keyboard to undo the selection. Next, by pressing Command Shift U, we can desaturate the image, or you can come up to Image Adjustments and come down to Desaturate. Next, we want to increase the contrast of this image. We'll come over here to Adjustments. We'll select levels right here after doing so. And by the way, you could have got it to it here in the layers palette by clicking on create a new fill adjustment or adjustment layer and selecting levels. Next, we're going to bring the blacks in a little bit. We're going to bring the whites in a little bit, and we're going to bring the midtone slider closer to the white, creating darker midtones, right? After we do that, we're going to commit this layer by pressing Command E. That merges the top layer with the layer below it. We're going to do that because we don't need layers in our displacement map. Next, if we want to add some more contrast, we can come over here and select the burn tool. If you're on dodge or sponge, just select burn. Just like the brush, you can change the size of the burn tool by pressing the bracket keys, left and right brackets. So find something. What I'm going to do is I'm going to burn this jawline, right? This will make things wrap even more around that. I'll go ahead and click here. Maybe I'll add something there, add something to the eyebrows, maybe this line under my eye, maybe the nose, maybe these lines in my neck, for example. Bada bing, bada boom. And so at this point, we have a displacement map. I can go ahead and save this to my desktop. Also, alternatively, I can press Command O and show you that I've actually already done this. So this is the displacement map I used. It doesn't look, I could have committed this down by pressing Command E, but anyways, this is what we're going to use, right? So now, once we have our displacement map, I can come up to the history right here by clicking on this, click on the start. Actually, we don't need to be on the start, We just want to be on the desaturated layer because we are going to do the same thing. So coming back over here, we'll go back to the point where after we've desaturated the layer, and cool, this is what we need. So next, I'm going to create a layer with text. I'll click on the plus right here to create a new layer in the layer palette, and now I want to create text. I'm going to switch my 2 colors here. Right now, if I press D, it would select the default colors, which it already is. Black for the foreground, white for the background. If I press X on my keyboard, it switches those 2 colors, right? Next, I'm going to select the text tool, which is over here, or I could press T on my keyboard and it selects the text tool. Next, I can click and I can start to type. So, for example, whatever words you want to use, for example, love, and type one word, right? And after, we can resize this. We could have alternatively, and make sure that this is white, So we'll come over here to the character palette, and then we'll select white. If it's not loaded there, come up to Window, make sure you have character selected, and then it should be loaded here. You can click on it to open it. You can change the color here to white, Next, we can change the size. Now, the larger this is, it will look different ways, right? So, for example, in this example, this text is not too big. Plus, I used a different font. I used Impact for certain ones, and then for the most part, I wrote a line of one of my favorite poems from Rumi. It says, "You dance inside my chest where no one sees you, but sometimes I do, and that sight becomes this art." However, I just used the first line. You dance inside my chest, and and then wherever there were spaces, I added the word love. So I'll start to do this here just to give you an example, huh? So if I press Command J on my keyboard with this text layer selected, boom, now I have another copy of it, right? I can press Command T on my keyboard to bring up the transform and then rotate this. If I hold Shift, it will constrain it to 15-degree increments. Next, I can come over here and line this up like so. And so this is, obviously, this can be a tedious process, especially if you start making, oops, I'll press Escape. I press Command J on my keyboard to make a duplicate of this, and then I'll rotate this one, maybe upside down, holding Shift to make sure I constrain it to that 90 degrees. I'll come over here, and maybe on this one, I'll make it smaller, huh? So I'll press Command T again. I'll go like this, whoops. And now with Photoshop, you have to press Shift in order to only change one of the ratios, huh? So width or height, etc. So maybe if I bring this over, now something like this. Anyways, I can keep layering this and then covering my face. You don't have to use a single word. You can write whatever you want. In order to save time, I'm actually going to take what I've already done over here in the final by scrolling down, finding it, and it is going to be, whoops, where are you, baby? I think that you will be right here, right? So I'm going to select this one. I need to delete this layer mask real quick. And now if we hide everything by pressing Option and clicking on this, you'll see that basically this is what I have, right? Two different textiles. The love is an impact, and then I have some other broken text for the sentence, right? Just to create differentiations. We have different sizes and just moved around and placed over my face. I'm going to go ahead and disable this, and you'll see it's all white text. I'll have V selected or the Move tool over here, and I'll click and I'll drag this up to the other tab, and I will drop it here, right? Next, I'm going to delete these text copies that I previously made. Just trying to save time. You don't have to sit, or I don't have to redo it and then fast forward and post. I'm going to undo what I just did because I moved myself. I'll make sure the text layer is selected, and then I'll line this up, right? It was roughly something like this, right? So after this is here, we need to do two things, huh? Maybe move it a little bit over, a little bit down, wherever you want. The purpose is that I'm covering my face. It's okay that it's going outside, because in my final, what I ended up doing is leaving some of the text outside in my face. Not all of it, but some of it, right? So next, in fact, if I want this text not to go outside of my face, if I press Command and I click on myself right here on the layers palette, and then I make sure that I'm on the layer of the text, I can create a layer mask, and boom, now this text is only on my face, right? Next, over here, I'm going to press Command J to duplicate this layer. Now I have this layer twice, right? On the layer that's on top, I can select Filter, Distort, Displace, and now it's going to ask me what I want to set it to. 10, 10, that's fine. Stretch to fit, repeat edge pixels. You want all those things selected. Now, this is a smart object, so any changes I make here, I could easily go back and change again. So if I wanted to set this to 5x5, 15x15, obviously experiment with your image, huh? I'll go ahead and click on OK. And now, after I click on OK, it's going to open up a dialog for me to select that displacement map that we saved out earlier, right? This is the one I saved here. I'll select Open, and when I do that, I'm going to hide the text layer below, and you'll notice that it is distorting around, you know, the contrasty areas, right? So next, for this particular one, we want to go ahead and we want to double click on the effects. We don't need that color overlay for this one, but let's add a drop shadow, huh? We'll select drop shadow, we'll change the angle to 135, and we'll set the distance to 5 and 5 and say okay, right? Next, the effects needs to be turned on for this to happen. And we need to turn off the color overlay. So now you see this text happening with a drop shadow. Now remember, this text layer below, we did not displace, right? So if we turn this on, and we make sure that the effect of the color overlay is on, this text below was not moved. It was not distorted. So this kind of gives it like a double or a 3D effect. Obviously, in certain places where you see the blue, that's where it was distorted. Where you don't see any blue, like right here, for example, the text wasn't really distorted right here, huh? Because it matches the text above it. Anyways, this is obviously optional. You don't have to do this. But because I made these two smart objects, now I did that in the previous version. Remember, I just copied and moved it over, and I moved it over as a smart object. But if you did not have this layer as a smart object, what you would do is right click and then find, create the convert to smart object right here. Huh? So again, because it's a smart object, we can come into the effects, double click on color overlay, and if we want to change this to another color, we totally can. Let's say we want to make it yellow, right? Click on OK, and now we have this. Next, we need a background. So I'm going to go ahead, come down here, select the last layer. I'll click on the add fill or adjustment layer, and I'll select solid color. When I do that, it's going to say, what solid color do you want? I'll select black and I'll click on OK. Next, I'll scroll down. I want this to be behind my face. Huh? So maybe it'll be easier to drag my face above it. And now this is, excuse me, in the background. Next, I want to duplicate this layer of my face, right? So let's rename it, double click, we'll type face. I'm going to press Command J, and that's going to make a copy. I'll drag this to the top of my layer palette. On the top of the layer palette, I'll change the blend mode from normal to linear burn. Now we're getting somewhere. Look how it caresses that sexy face, right? Anyways, I got jokes, yo. Let's duplicate this layer again by pressing Command J, and we're going to change the blend mode to multiply, and now we're really getting somewhere, huh? One of the things we can do is reintroduce some of that text. Remember, I have a layer mask on both these text layers, right? If we want to reintroduce the text, we'll come to this top layer that has just the white text. We'll select it. And then what we want to do is make sure white is our foreground color, and then we select our brush tool by pressing B. Next, we do want a soft edge brush, so we'll click over here and make sure hardness is set to 0. As far as the size, I'm not sure yet, but we want to make sure the opacity is set to 50%. The reason for that is we don't want this to be too prominent, huh? So I'm going to bring the brush down a little bit and do like this. Maybe that's too much, so I'll press Command Z, right? So what we can do right now is go ahead and duplicate this layer, right? I'll go ahead and press Command J, and now let me give you some more room so you can see what's happening. We have 3 text layers. These 2 are duplicates. We'll call this white text. We'll call the one below, which is the yellow text, right? Or the text that just has color. And then on this one, this is going to be external text. This is going to be the text that goes outside of my head. And the reason I've done this is because I can go ahead and paint this on and then lower the opacity of this layer, right? So again, I have my brush tool selected. I have the layer mask selected. I have white as my foreground color. The opacity is set to, let's even drop that down to 35, let's say. And then I'm just going to come and start to drag around here, something like this. Maybe over there, maybe here, maybe there, and maybe there, huh? So something like that. Then we can come over here to the opacity and change this to, I don't know, 25%. That's not enough. How about 50%? No, that's too much. Somewhere in the middle, I don't know, or 35 is not exactly the middle, but maybe there, right? So now we're there. We're pretty much where we were in the other final, which you're not going to see because I dragged one of the layers over and I changed it, etc. But anyways, you could still make more changes, huh? So let's say you wanted to add some color here. You could add a photo filter on top, right? Come to add fill or adjustment layer and make sure that you are on the top layer in your layers palette. Then come here and select photo filter from the adjustment layers additions. And now if we want it to blend more, we can select something, right? Maybe you wanted a red tint over this. Maybe you wanted sepia, right? Maybe you wanted, and this is changing the density of the sepia, right? Maybe you want it to whatever. Anyways, obviously optional, but at this point you can do more, you can do less. You can remove this text on the outside if you don't want, right? Etc. So guys, I hope you liked this tutorial. You found it informative. You found it useful. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. Please like, share, subscribe, share it with your friends, yo. It helps a lot. Until next time, I'm out.